And out front now, Daniel Bongino, a former NYPD officer. Dan, you just heard Michael Brown's mother and saying, look, her husband didn't act on that hateful comment. She said it was just a moment of emotion. He was speaking out of anger, that everyone does that. Do you think he should be charged?
Sadly, yes, I do. And it gives me no joy to say that. I'm sure he was hurting. I completely understand. I'm sure the mother was in unspeakable pain. She lost her son. But you have to remember, Aaron, that doesn't give you permission to go out there and call for you burning something down. That, keep in mind, he wasn't talking about burning down his property. He was talking about burning down everybody else's property. And when he asked for the mic, I think that proves pretty conclusively intent. He didn't just say it once or twice. It wasn't a Freudian slip.
And he did say it multiple times. You're right about that. But there was a lot of damage being done before he even spoke, right? If you look at the timing of this, there were already crowds in the streets. There were people, who were there with the intent to do harm to begin with. He spoke 2 miles away from the worst of the damage in terms of, if you're going to say, were the people right around him who were already out there, who heard what he said, did they go do this? He was 2 miles away. Is he just a convenient scapegoat for what happened?
Well, I appreciate the context, Aaron. You're correct. But that doesn't absolve him of his specific actions and his criminality. Those other people are going to have to be tried separately on potentially separate charges, whether it be looting, petit larceny, grand larceny. You can't do what he did. Is he a scapegoat? No, I don't. No one forced him to say that. And if, Aaron, if he had said it once in context out of anger and then went on and just screamed and yelled something different, I think everybody would get it. But it wasn't once. I counted about 6 or 7 times, and then he asks for a microphone. And remember, I think the context actually hurts his case. It doesn't help it because there had already been incidents of things burning down. So calling for it again, I think, hurts him. It doesn't help him.
Don Lemon is joining me here on set. And Don, you hear Dan making the case. He's saying, look, he said it again and again and again. He's not a scapegoat. Yes, he was going through pain, but sadly, yes, he should be charged. There are others who say, look, the KKK was out there the week before distributing leaflets. There were people who wanted there to be riots. And if you're going to charge someone, why do you pick him?
There are enough charges to go around. And obviously, listen, I want to make this clear. No one is making excuses for what Lewis had said. It was reprehensible.
Yep, it was a horrible
But I come from this. I don't know how I would react if my loved one died. I don't know, regardless of the circumstances, if my loved one was in the wrong or the right. I don't know how I would react. And also, Jeffrey Toobin says this all the time, and I think it's a really poignant point. These are ordinary people who were forced, for whatever reasons, into extraordinary circumstances. He should not have said what he said. But if he's going to be charged, there are enough charges to go around. And I think by doing that, this is just my opinion here, by doing that, it would be pouring gasoline on a fire that's already been ignited in that community.
And Dan, what about that point? I mean, let's just say there are charges enough to go around. And let's just say you could make the argument, as you have, that he should be among those charged. What about that point, though, that Don makes about it being gasoline on the fire, that could make this even worse? Is it worth it?
Well, the question, I would have for Don is, do the property owners and the taxpayers of Ferguson who now have to buy new police cars, do they have rights? I mean, is this not pour gasoline on the fire?
And I have spoken out very strongly again. I know you didn't. I have spoken out very strongly against the people who were setting those fires and looting. I was in the middle of it. So no one knows better, or there are very few people who know any better than I do, because
Don,
I was there.
A cop. I think I could make my point. I think
You're not a cop in Ferguson. You weren't there the night of the looting and the violence.
Don, well, you weren't a cop ever, anywhere. So
what does that have to do with anything?
Because I've actually had people screaming in my face and spitting in my face for many years when I did that.
What does that have to do with Lewis
Because the entire point I'm trying to make, you didn't let me finish, by the way, is do they have a right? And if they don't have a right to protection, what's to stop if you don't?
Of course they have a right to protection, but what does that have to do with charging Lewis
Don, listen, you obviously have all the answers, so what's the point?
No, I'm not saying I don't have all the answers.
Well, are you going to let me finish my point, or are you just going to talk over me?
Don is making a specific point, which is, why would you make the charges just against him? I mean, why would you go?
Who said that? I did not say that. I think anybody who had, and you brought up the point initially of a white supremacist group that maybe, if they distributed leaflets that incentivized riots or violence or anything of the sort, they should be locked up and thrown in jail and given a trial like anyone else. The point I was about to make to Don is that do the property owners have rights to be protected by the police? And if this individual is not at least arrested, I'm not saying convicted, that's up to a jury. If he is not at least arrested, there's clearly no penalty for getting a microphone or asking for one and telling everyone, hey, burn the neighborhood down. Just go ahead.
You sound exactly like the people who are saying that Officer Darren Wilson should be arrested. You understand that, right?
Officer Darren Wilson was put through a grand jury hearing, and probable cause wasn't found. I don't know what else to say about it.
Lewis Head should be put through a grand jury to see if there's probable cause. And listen, I'm not defending Lewis Head. What I'm saying to you, I have said that what he said is reprehensible. I have spoken out against all the violence and the people who are out there looting and rioting. But to pick out this one person because of some angry remarks that he should be charged, I think we need to think twice about that, and we need to step back off the ledge, and cooler heads should prevail. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no, Donna, we agree. No one's saying that, though. I'm not saying he should be picked out. Anyone, let me be clear on this. Anyone responsible for engaging in criminal acts that put a price on someone else, whether it be their property burned down, whether they were assaulted, should be arrested and put in front of a trial of their peers like anyone else in a law-abiding country would. I'm not singling him out, but he has to be responsible for his behavior.
I agree with that, but I also think that there's plenty of video, plenty of people who know who the looters, the rioters, and the people who are burning. Those people should be prosecuted, and those people should be arrested.
Well, we agree.
They pull those videos on that because, as you point out, they should be able to find out exactly who those people are.